Hello, hello.
Hi.
So, even though I already interviewed you before, I still want to ask, what is Pussypedia and how did it start?
Okay, Pussypedia started at this platform. It's an encyclopedia of the pussy. It's bilingual, it's free, it's online. It has a render of the pussy so you can explore it layer by layer, and it tells you what part is which. And it has a lot of resources, and all the information that you can find there is fact-checked. It's completely illustrated, and so you can tell how it started.
Pussypedia started when I was having an argument with an ex-boyfriend about whether or not all women can squirt, and I Googled it, and what I found was just a lot of really stupid information that was not factual and not cited and not rooted in any science. So I started reading some medical journal articles, and I learned some things that really shocked me, and I kind of got into this rabbit hole and spent a whole night reading about pussies. And in the morning I called Maria and I said, let's do a pussy project.
Oh, really? Oh, that was fast. I think for many readers, Pussypedia is kind of like catching up to like years of misinformation or a lack of information around our bodies. What was your experience with it when you were younger?
Well, I'm from a very conservative and small city, close to Mexico City, but still very small. And we never get to talk about these topics at all. Like, we never mention pussies. And I had a very Catholic education, so that always made me feel like there was something wrong with my body. Like, they use shame to make us feel, to control us, or to make us feel, I don't know, like some sort of guilt. So yeah, my experience was that it was like awkward talking about these things.
Yeah, and how about you?
I think I was like in as progressive of a space as I could have possibly been in, but even so, there was just so much missing from my education, both at school and at home. You know, my mom tried so hard to teach us what she knew, and she was very open with us and answered all of our questions, but still, I mean, the anatomy of the clitoris was just not a topic in the 90s. I think Helen O'Connell had just published her studies that, you know, established what that internal form was like, and it didn't really make its way into public consciousness for another 10, like 11, 12 years. So yeah, there was just a ton missing that I took for granted that I didn't know those things. I never even thought about the fact that I didn't know them. Things you don't know, you don't know. That in hindsight were like gaping holes in what I think would be a complete education.
Why do you think that the information around bodies is so restricted? Like, who gains and who loses the most from this lack of access to knowledge?
Well, I think the ones that get the most out of our shame are like cosmetic industries and also the pharmaceutical ones, because we are like, shame is very dangerous, and sometimes because we feel shame, we don't go to the doctor. And we Google our symptoms, and when you Google stuff on the internet, you think that you're gonna die. You know? So you end up like thinking the worst, or not going to the doctor because you're ashamed. And also the pharmaceuticals sell you all these products that you don't have any idea what's in them. So yeah, the patriarchy gets a lot of it.
Yeah, just the patriarchy in general, right? Shame is, when we don't have access to information, I think that causes shame. Because you don't know what's going on, you don't know that you're normal. And when you mix that with this narrative that pussies are gross, anything that your pussy's doing is gross. Like, the most popular article on our site is vaginal discharge, and I think that's because it's something that nobody talks about. And it's something that causes a lot of shame, but in fact is the way that your pussy keeps itself clean. And if you don't have any, something might be wrong. I mean, it's nearly universal in pussies, not in surgically constructed pussies. But yeah, if you have a cervix, you know. So yeah, I think when we feel shame, we don't ask for what we want. We don't ask for what we need. We make ourselves smaller. And that's in the interest of the patriarchy. We lose power. It disempowers us.
And how do you think creatives can play a role in addressing this problem?
Just talking about vaginal discharge. Everybody should start talking about vaginal discharge at least once a day.
Maria, your illustrations are very known to be vibrant and eye-catching. I'm wondering if this is your style in general, or if you developed this specifically to communicate about bodies.
Yeah, I think this has been my style all along. I always try to be direct and to communicate the more with less. So it was important for me to create these simple but bold, direct, honest depictions of all pussy topics and try to create a different way of perceiving them.
And so for the illustrations in Pussypedia, were there any decisions about visuals that were particularly hard to make?
I don't think hard. I mean, we used 3 colors, black and white, and one specific color of a palette that I set up for the project. I think that it was hard, breaking a lot of structures, mental structures. I work with a lot of illustrators. So I talk about this in the presentation, but we have this case where we had this illustrator making a depiction of the herpes virus, and her first proposal was to show it as this scary monster. Oh. And the whole point of the article was to destigmatize herpes and to show it as the very common virus it is. Mm. So she needed to went back to that process, and she came back with these characters that were cute and they were having a good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Writing an encyclopedia is such a huge accomplishment. I'm curious what your research process was like.
Yeah, the research process, basically I did a literature review for every topic, which means I went into academic databases, medical databases, and looked at everything I could find past a certain date for each topic. And then once I found those, I looked to discard anything maybe based on having very flagrant conflicts of interest, or looked at how to weight the information based on the size of the study, based on the study design. Is it a controlled study? Is it double-blind? And looking also at, sometimes it's a very specific population that may not be applicable to everyone. And then once in those studies, looking at the studies that they're citing and going to find that original research and evaluating those studies.
A lot of research, basically.
Yeah, I also did interviews with scientists and people about their experiences, and activists, and
what steps went into making sure that that the research is both inclusive and representative?
Well, for the website, we did a focus group with trans, non-binary, and intersex people, and they generated a series of guidelines that we implemented, and we used that for the book as well. But also I spoke to, a sex educator who teaches, is a disabilities activist, and another sex educator who's non-binary, and a trans doctor who treats trans people, and just tried to get a really broad range of voices into the book for the things that I didn't think that I would know best how to approach.
Yeah, and so a question that I have for the both of you is what does it offer you creatively to work with a writer, and what does it offer for you creatively to work with an illustrator?
Well, for me, I mean, Zoe and I are from different countries. So for me, it was expanding everything, my imaginary, my thoughts on things. Like sex education in Mexico is different from the United States. So I had access to all of the resources she was using for the research. And also Zoe has this unique voice, which is very funny and honest. So I think that helped me create honest and funnier illustrations.
I love that. How about you?
It's just exciting and fun. I think like collaborating with Maria has been one of like the most fun, exciting, creative experiences I've had, just because we have like really great creative chemistry, and like we've had so many disagreements, but it's never been about what the work should be. Like every time we're actively working together, it's just like fire. Like, I get like really excited in my whole body, like, yeah, and this and that. And like when I see her illustrations, like I just feel like we're tuned into the same wavelength about like what we want to give people. And it's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, it sounds like a great collaboration. When people read Pussypedia, is there something that surprises them in particular? Like, do you get certain reactions a lot?
Well, I think that we have become a sort of safe space for people to talk about pussies. So every time we go into places, there is people looking forward to tell us everything about their pussies or about their sex life.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Everybody's welcome to tell me about their sex
Okay.
life.
I thought you were gonna say, please stop.
No, never stop. And, I think that there's certain like facts that people really don't know. Like people don't know that the vagina sheds its skin cells every 4 hours to feed its pet bacteria that keep the pH level at the right, balance, so that other bacteria don't overgrow or fungus don't overgrow. People don't know that the clitoris and the penis are anatomical analogs. They definitely don't know that they're on average the same size. There's certain things like that, but I think the general also reaction to the book is that they're surprised that it's fun and funny, because I think nobody takes that approach to teaching this stuff, and there's just so much shame wrapped up in it, and like we really put so much like extremely personal, honest stuff in there, and some of the stories are definitely not funny either, but yeah, I think people are surprised that it's an experience that is like positive and fun, because the experiences we're used to having when we talk about these things are like serious or shameful or guilt-ridden or awkward.
Is there anything you would still like to learn about even after writing Pussypedia? Is there something you're still like curious about?
I think there's a huge lack of research and scientific consensus about the urethral sponge. It's not, even established that it exists. It has to exist, as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, I wish there was just so much more research funded about it, because it's such a central part of how pleasure is transmitted from the vagina to the clitoris, and it's where our prostate is, and it's how we ejaculate, and it's, I think, part of the resistance to wanting to invest in research about it. And this is like kind of a conspiratorial statement, because it's not on like a super conscious level, but I think it's because it like makes it clear how much the clitoris is really like a penis. Because in a penis, the urethra is surrounded by a tube of erectile tissue, and probably, most likely, in the clitoris it is as well. The urethra goes through the clitoris, and so yeah, I would really love to
research more on that.
I've researched it to the bone. What's missing is some more studies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And how about you?
I think in my case, the book has like a little over 50 illustrations, And in 50 illustrations, you can fit the entire diversity of body shapes or textures or colors that exist. So I would definitely love to add more images to this.
And what do you feel like in the next decade creatives should be working on?
I would love to say pussies, but like the planet, global warming. There's no pussies like if we all die, so.
Yeah, totally.
That's true. And what are you excited to be working on in the future? Or right now, actually?
I'm excited of creating new narratives. Like now in my artwork, there is a lot of influence by all these pussy pleasure perspective that we work in the book. So I'm excited of keep developing this pleasure-oriented imaginary.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to add something to that?
I love pussies, obviously, but after 6 years, I'm kind of excited to maybe start working on other things.
Yeah, no, understandable.
Yeah.
And it will still exist, obviously, and you can still go back and forth, but I understand that.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being here today, for speaking, and for talking to me also.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, it was a pleasure.